Hello, everyone. Just want to thank you for joining us this morning and let you know that we'll be getting started shortly. All right, hello again, everyone. My name is Matthew Eversole, and I'm the Manager of Product Marketing here at Bacharach. I'm joined today by Karl Roberts, our Director of Sales for the Refrigerant Leak Detection products. Karl, how are you today?
Good, thank you, Matt. Thanks to everyone for joining the presentation today. We appreciate you taking the time, and we certainly hope that the overview of the new MGS-400 series is very useful for you guys.
Thanks, Karl. Well, before I hand over the presentation to Karl, I just want to cover a few housekeeping topics so that everyone can get the most out of today's event. By default, all attendees will be in listen-only mode, and you'll be able to take audio either via your computer or you can use the dial-in information that you see in the dialog box on the right. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we'll be emailing a video to all attendees later this week. That being said, this is a live presentation, and we encourage you to ask questions. Please use the chat box on the right to ask questions, and we'll be taking a question and answer session following the presentation. We're very excited about the launch of the 400 Gas Detection Series, and we hope that you share that excitement with us. And without any more ado, I just want to hand over presentation to Karl. Karl, take it away.
Great, thanks, Matt. So yeah, as I say, good morning, everyone. As Matt says, we're looking forward to taking you through the overview. Just in terms of some of the topics we will be discussing today as part of the session, the MGS-400 series will be providing a good overview of all aspects, really. So in particular, we'll be looking at the 3 different variants of the MGS-400 series gas detectors. So we have the MGS-410 version, the 450 and the 460, and we'll go through those in some detail. In addition to the product themselves, we'll be looking at some of the key benefits of the MGS-400 series. We'll also be looking at some of the detail around the MGS-408, which is the control panel that can be used with the product. In addition, we'll be looking at the new app, the Bluetooth app, which is available for Android and iOS devices, and that can be utilized for a number of different functions to configure, install, and calibrate the instrument. So we'll go through that in some detail. And then at the end of the presentation, there'll be an opportunity to take a look through some example applications and configurations. There are a number of those, and we won't go through in huge detail all of them, but what that is designed to do is show and illustrate the flexibility of the product from an installation perspective. Okay. So just as an introductory overview, really, the MGS-400 series is being introduced to build on Bacharach's significant success and market position with some of our existing product platforms out in the marketplace. So many of you will be familiar with the MGS-150 or the MGD-100 gas detector platforms, very well established in the marketplace. We manufacture somewhere around 30,000 detectors globally per year of those products. They're long established in the market. However, they are quite old products now. They're quite antiquated in some respects compared to modern products. And the MGS-400 series is designed to replace both of those within our diffusion portfolio. In terms of the MGS-400 Gas Detection Series, one of the intrinsic aspects with regard to the design of the product is that we wanted to ensure that there was some significant product differentiation between not just Bacharach's existing diffusion products, but also what we see out there in the market space with regard to some of the competitor products. It's, as you can appreciate, not necessarily easy, but we were keen to create some differentiation in what is an increasingly commoditized market space for this type of product in the market. Importantly, what we attempted to do with the design as well, incorporated, was to solve significant customer pain points associated with fixed gas detection products. So we did an awful lot of voice of customer work, working with our customers, with installation contractors and refrigeration equipment owners to identify their key pain points regarding fixed gas detection, so we could attempt to address those in the design of the product. As I mentioned at the outset, there are 3 different variants to the MGS-400 Gas Detection Series. Really, the key target market for this product is the safety compliance market. So it's really there to help our customers comply with the requirements of EN 378 here in Europe, and also ASHRAE 15 in the US, for example. The 3 different versions are the MGS-410 gas detector. So the MGS-410 has a full feature set, and we'll go through the features in more detail as we move through the presentation. However, in terms of communications and outputs, the MGS-410 has Modbus only, and it is IP66 rated. So the 410 really was designed to support our OEM customers and our channel partners who have an installation where there is a control system of some kind, and they don't necessarily need or want the gas detector to have multiple outputs from the detector itself. They want to have purely a Modbus output that connects and interfaces into their control system, and then that control system then drives all of the other actions associated with alarms and faults and data logging, etc. The next variant is the MGS-450 version of the gas detector. This has Modbus 2, but this also incorporates analog output and 3 times relays for your alarm notification and fault notification. The MGS-450 is available as IP41 or IP66 rated enclosure versions. So again, you can choose those depending on the application and project requirements. The third version is the MGS-460 gas detector, which is essentially the same as the 450. However, it has a remote sensor capability with the 460. So this is supplied standard as with a 5-meter cable. However, it's a standard Ethernet cable. So one of the nice features around this is that you can go out to any hardware store and buy a suitably lengthed Ethernet cable to suit the installation requirements. The 460 is IP66 rated. In addition to the detectors themselves, we have also launched the MGS-408, which is a gas detection controller. It's designed to interface up to 8 individual gas detectors, and again, we'll come to some greater detail around that as we move through the presentation. This table really is just a useful visual overview of the key features for each of those different variants of the 400 series. So as you can see, the 410, 450 and 460 across the top there, and the different feature set on the left-hand side. As I say, it's just a useful visual indicator when you're looking to provide a quotation or make a proposal for customers. As I mentioned earlier, one of the key design considerations for Bacharach when designing the MGS-400 series was how do we differentiate the product in terms of a refrigerant safety solution? How do we differentiate it from what's out there at the moment? And our key targeted customer groups for this product, of course, are refrigeration managers and engineers, facilities managers, refrigeration contractors, and refrigeration installers. As I say, the key objective, or one of the key objectives, was to delight and solve some of the key pain points that our target customer groups were facing. Ultimately, the feedback we had from the market was that customers wanted to save time and save money, make it very simple to use and understand, therefore reducing the training requirements for the engineers. Of course, of key importance is that the product needs to support them in their efforts to comply with the relevant refrigerant safety standards. And in addition to that, the detector should be suitable for the applications and provide an optimized level of performance in the field. Okay, so in terms of saving time and saving money as a key pain point for some of our customers, from an installation perspective, the product has been fully designed by engineers for engineers. We spent a lot of time, as I say, on the voice of customer process to identify the key areas of concern for the engineering side. As you'll see as we move through the presentation, the product features multiple cable entries to assist in making that easy and simple. In addition, the 400 series has the capacity to daisy chain power and communications. So again, to simplify the installation process. From a commissioning perspective, the product should be fast and intuitive. There should be no special tools required, as is the case now with the MGS-400 series. So in terms of the commissioning, you don't need to utilize any multimeters. There are no potentiometers to adjust. And ultimately, one of the key feedback that we had from our customer base was that not many people read the manual, and that's probably true. With the MGS-400 series, it's been designed that, quite frankly, you don't need to read the manual. It's extremely intuitive and simple to use. In terms of the maintenance aspects, key step forward for ourselves, and certainly compared to many parts of the market, is that the 400 series offers fully pre-calibrated sensor exchange, which is a simple plug and play. It's as easy as changing a light bulb. So you essentially unscrew the old sensor module, screw the new sensor module in, and it's very quick and simple and easy. So what would have previously taken perhaps 30 minutes or so per detector to carry out a calibration process, it can now be done in less than 5 with no specialist tools required, no calibration gas required. It's a very quick and easy and pain-free exercise. From a user interface perspective, we wanted in the design of the 400 series to design it such that it would minimize training requirements and again keep it simple to use and maintain. Therefore, we developed an intuitive smartphone application. As I mentioned earlier, this is available today on both iOS and Android devices. It communicates via Bluetooth to the MGS-400 series detector. It essentially offers very simple configuration and calibration features. It offers real-time data view of the current status of the sensor and the performance. It offers a test mode, so you can carry out some test functions on the outputs, etc. And it offers some diagnostic information around the sensor life, etc. that we'll go into in some more details. In terms of the sensor modules themselves, they've been designed as a poke yoke design, which essentially means that there is no way those sensor modules can actually be incorrectly installed. You can't put them in upside down or put them in the wrong way round. There is only one way that they can go in. So again, it makes that relatively foolproof and simple to carry out. Of course, when we talk about this product type in the marketplace, one of the key objectives is to ensure that we can support our customers to meet the compliance requirements of the different refrigerant safety standards. So the 400 series has been fully designed in terms of its operation, performance, and feature set to meet those safety standards. So here in Europe, of course, we are particularly concerned with EN 378. In the US, it's ASHRAE 15, and also in Canada and Japan, the relevant standards. Again, the 400 series is designed to support compliance with those standards. It fully integrates with building automation. So you can either integrate the detectors into the 408 controller or on-site BMS systems. Each of the detectors, whether it's the 410, the MGS-450 or the MGS-460, all come with fully integrated audio and visual alarms. And the performance and design of the units is such that it ensures the control and mitigation requirements are met as per the standards. From a performance standpoint, the MGS-400, as with all our products at Bacharach, are designed very much with the specific applications that we see and support in the refrigeration and air conditioning industries, with those in mind. So we designed the product here to provide an optimized performance in those applications and conditions. In particular, the response time is extremely important. It's important that once a gas sensor senses a gas, particularly above an alarm set point, that it is very quick to respond to alert personnel or systems in the area to notify them that there is an alarm condition. And so in terms of the design of the housing for the 400 series, if you see the image on the right-hand side of your screen there, if you see the faceplate with the small grills, that is the diffusion entry point for the gas. The sensor module essentially sits flush to the back of that faceplate. So what that means is there is no dead space within the housing of the sensor. As soon as that gas starts to hit the housing of the sensor at the front of that plate, the sensor will start to respond very quickly. In addition, and this is a very critical point that we identified perhaps is not being met by some parts of the market, is that it's important that the detectors are suitable for low temperature performance. Each of the MGS-400 series gas detectors is certified down to -40. So it's suitable across excuse me, a broad range of installation requirements, from ambient to cold stores right down to blast freezers. It can be a standardized solution across all of those areas. In addition, a huge step forward with regard to particularly the semiconductor sensors that the 400 series utilizes for HFCs and HFOs, for example. One of the inherent downsides from a technological perspective with semiconductor sensors is that they can be prone to fluctuations with temperature shifts. So that potentially can and has in the past created false responses. So for example, typical classic example is on defrost cycles, where you go through a defrost cycle, the temperature shifts significantly, and the semiconductor sensor can go into alarm. Very pleased to say that on the 400 series, we have full temperature compensation built into the firmware of the sensors on these units. So what that means is that that will mitigate those false alarm issues with regard to temperature shift. You'll be pleased to know, and as we all are aware, there's continual and ongoing change with regard to refrigerants that are both available in the market today, but also refrigerants that are coming to the market. We at Bacharach pride ourselves on our capacity and capability to monitor those changes and keep very close to them in order to ensure that we can meet our customers' requirements and the market requirements as demand requires. So we do offer a very broad range of halogenated and natural refrigerants within the MGS-400 platform. We utilize a range of sensor technologies for those refrigerants, and using sensors that are compatible for detection of those different types. And in addition, we utilize our own engineering laboratory facilities to offer sensor characterization. As and when new refrigerants come to the market, we undertake a full laboratory process to add those to our list of available gases that we can detect. Okay, so this slide really provides a few more details around what I was just discussing around temperature performance. So it's very important that this is available in a very low temperature certified capability. So what that means, as I mentioned before, is that with the 400 series, you have a standardized solution, regardless of whether you are using it for a walk-in freezer, a cold room, a machinery room, or an air-conditioned environment. It provides a very standardized solution that you can utilize across all aspects. The reason that's particularly important is if a sensor or a detector is not certified for the relevant temperature that it will be installed and utilized in, there are significant drawbacks potentially in terms of the performance of that sensor. Typically that will be in terms of response time, perhaps recovery time, but also in terms of the accuracy of the sensor as well. So I'm very pleased to say that the 400 series is fully certified across the range down to that low temperature point. The temperature compensation I've mentioned already. What that is designed for really is to mitigate false alarms, particularly during defrost cycles, for example. Minimizes the cost associated with unnecessary engineer callouts. So if you had a false alarm and you called an engineer out, obviously there is a cost associated to that. And it also mitigates the need for some of the adjustments that might be necessary during the commissioning process. As mentioned a couple of times already today, the key application for the MGS-400 series is to assist in compliance with the relevant standards and codes. In line with that, the product has been designed to feature a number of features that support in that. So, for example, it has tricolor LEDs on both the gas detectors themselves and also on the MGS-408 controller to indicate alarm, power, and fault status. It has inbuilt audible alarms, again on both the gas detectors and the controller. On the 450 and the 460 variants, they have 3 alarm relays. So the relays can be used to activate additional countermeasures, such as activation of mechanical ventilation system, or used to connect to external horns and strobes. All of the MGS-400 series detectors offer a fully configurable high and low alarm set points. So that's designed to initiate appropriate actions at those alarm set points. And again, they are fully configurable, which enables our customers to set those according to their own site conditions and site requirements. And again, coming back to the point around optimized response times, the reason that's important is that it ensures a very quick response in the event of an alarm condition. And obviously from a safety perspective, that's a huge benefit to the customers. Okay, so again, one of the key pain points that we identified from our voice of the customer work when designing the 400 series was the time and the expense around maintenance and calibration of gas detectors that are in the market today. So we designed the pre-calibrated sensor modules. As I mentioned, it's very much a plug and play exchange in the field. It takes a couple of minutes to do. It certainly saves time versus manual calibration, and that's particularly true if you have a site with a number of detectors installed. There is no requirement for the engineer to either purchase or carry calibration gas or regulators, and there are no specialist tools or training necessarily required to carry out the sensor exchange. The smart aspect of the sensor modules really is the PCB that is mounted onto the sensor module itself. The PCB holds all of the gas type and calibration information for that sensor. In terms of the calibration process itself, you can initiate that via the app, which I'll show you in some greater detail shortly, or via the magnetic switch. So each MGS-400 series detectors will come with a small magnet, and that is required to switch the magnetic switch. There's actually 2 magnetic switches in the bottom of the detectors themselves, and you can use one of those magnetic switches to put the unit into calibration mode. So once you've initiated the calibration mode via the app or with the magnetic switch, you simply apply your calibration gas, switch that on. The instrument makes all of the necessary adjustments. There's no need for any use of voltmeters. There's no need to adjust any potentiometers. You don't need to even take the faceplate off the detector itself. Very quick and easy and straightforward to do. Once the calibration is complete, you will receive a notification on the app, if you're using the app, that it's been completed and has been successful or has failed. And if you're not using the app, the LEDs on the unit will indicate whether the calibration was successful or not. Built into the MGS-400 series, we have also included for some fault codes and diagnostics, and this is really designed from an engineering standpoint to optimize technical support. So it helps the engineers to identify quickly and easily what the actual fault is or could be, and it helps therefore to potentially reduce that need to return any detectors to the factory for service. It helps to identify the fault quickly and therefore minimize downtime on site of the detector. The 400 series will provide a calibration due indicator utilizing the app or through the Modbus interface. So this essentially tells the customer when the calibration is due to be performed. And the benefit this brings is that it enables very much a proactive maintenance program to ensure that the detector is functioning correctly. And importantly too, particularly for us here in Europe, is it ensures additional compliance with regard to F-gas in terms of ensuring that the gas detectors are maintained annually as per the requirements. Another feature that we have in there is a sensor exposure counter. So what this does is this essentially summarizes the total gas that sensor has been exposed to in its lifetime in terms of ppm hours. So what this does again is it enables the engineers, the service company, the end user to proactively identify when the sensor replacement may be required. And it also helps to identify if a sensor has been damaged due to, for example, a huge overexposure of refrigerant. From a communications perspective, again, the benefit we wanted to add here was to provide some degree of flexibility for our customers. So all MGS-400 products feature Modbus over RS-485. So that enables the detectors to interface with the MGS-408 controller or any third-party BMS system that utilizes Modbus. This use of this also enables us to offer daisy chain communications to make for easy installation of the product. And the Modbus extracts a full set of information from the instruments around the alarm set points, the diagnostic information, sensor information, calibration data, etc. On the MGS-450 and 460, they both come with an analog output. This can be configured by yourselves and the customers to be 4 to 20 milliamp or voltage. And again, what this enables is simple direct interface with standard control devices in the marketplace. In addition to the analog output, the 450 and the 460 versions also come with relay outputs. There are 3 relay outputs built into each of those. and that allows for low alarm set point, high alarm, and also fault alarm. And again, this assists our customers to ensure that they can initiate action on alarms such as activation of mechanical ventilation, activation of external horns and strobes, for example. Okay, so another benefit key here from an installation perspective is, and you'll see from the product image on the right-hand side of your screen there are a number of cable entries for the MGS-400 series detectors. So the 410 has 4, the 450 has 6, 460 has 5. The 460 has 5 rather than 6 because 1 is utilized for the remote sensor integration. As you can see from that, it's a real benefit from an installation perspective because it means there's no crowding of trying to stuff a number of different cables into cable glands. It's very neat from an installation perspective, and it enables that daisy chaining of both the power and the Modbus. In terms of the internal design from a terminals perspective, there are separate in and out terminals for the cable entries. So again, that means there's no need to place multiple wires in a single terminal block, and it's a very neat exercise in terms of that installation. Okay, so in addition to the detectors themselves, we offer the 408 gas detection controller. This is designed to be a very simple to understand and operate device for the customers. And it provides a simple at-a-glance visualization of all gas detectors that are connected to the control panel. So the control panel can communicate with up to 8 MGS-400 series gas detectors. It communicates via Modbus, so what that also means is that it has the added benefit that you can interface Bacharach's MGS-250 and also MGS-450 gas detectors into that control panel as well. It provides alphanumeric display and tricolor LEDs for each of the gas detectors connected. So it's very simple at a glance to understand the status of each channel, whether it's an alarm condition, a fault condition, for example, or just a standard power. The control panel features an audible alarm. You can see the also a visual alarm option, which is, as you can see on the image on the right-hand side, is mounted to the top of the case. The control panel features 3 relays, again to mirror the relay capability of the detectors themselves. So you have a low alarm, a high alarm, and a fault relay. The control panel can also be used as a slave Modbus over RS485. So again, you can have your, if you prefer, the gas detectors coming into this control panel, and then the control panel communicating and interfacing via Modbus into a third-party control system or a BMS. In addition, the 408 controller incorporates an SD card, which is used for logging events, so faults and alarms. Okay, from a user interface perspective, we spent a lot of time to develop the MGS-400 app, which is available on Android and iOS. It connects via Bluetooth to the detectors, and it can be utilized to enable all the configuration features, data extraction. It's an extremely intuitive interface, and there is not any great requirement really for training. It's extremely intuitive to use, and again, this really feeds into trying to address some of those key pain points from engineers and from our customer base in terms of the pain points they see with product that is on the market today. Okay, so the image on the right-hand side there is the main screen for the app, and that will be the screen as you open it. Essentially, to connect the app to the MGS-400 detectors, you utilize the magnetic switch that I mentioned earlier, and you essentially just hold that under the magnetic switch for a few seconds. That then activates the Bluetooth on the detector itself, and then you can connect via the app. So the main screen here will show the current gas reading, the gas type, It will show the alarm status indication. So on the image on the right there, you see a green circle around the gas and ppm reading. If that detector was in an alarm, either a first or second stage alarm, that color ring would be either amber or red, and of course it would show the real-time ppm reading on there. You can utilize the app on this page to acknowledge alarms. So if there was an alarm condition and you had that to be set to be latching, you can acknowledge the alarm. It gives you details of the instrument serial number, and there are also a number of menu options that you can click through to for calibration, to view the details of the instrument, to disconnect from the Bluetooth, and to restart. The instrument details screen, as you can see here on the right, is really used to give an overview of the setup of the instrument as it is at the time of connection. So it will show you the last fault details, the instrument and sensor type and serial numbers. It will show you sensor information, the firmware, and also your alarm set points. It will also show you here the calibration due timer. So it will show you when the countdown to the next calibration due. On this particular screen, it's really a reference screen. There is no option here to change any of these configurable items from this particular screen. Okay, and moving on to the calibration screen. So just as a note on both the calibration and the configuration, the calibration, sorry, and the Bluetooth connectivity, there is a password protection. So it's there really to prevent any unnecessary tampering with the instrument or with the set points of that instrument, the configuration. So on the calibration screen here, you can see we have a capability to have to perform a full calibration of the instrument or a simple bump test. You can see the green buttons there say start 0 or start span. So you can do a 0 calibration and a full span calibration. One of the unique features of the app is that, as you can see, just below those green buttons, there is a scan 0 and scan span with a barcode next to there. What you can use that for is essentially you can use your smart device to scan the barcode, the QR code on the cylinder of calibration gas, and then all of the calibration gas details will be populated in the fields that are just below. So it will show you the gas, the batch number, the expiry date, to give that information from a traceability perspective for your calibrations. So you can scan that detail in. Essentially, once you to initiate a calibration, you attach your cylinder of calibration gas to the detector, you switch that on and you click start span. It will automatically go through that calibration procedure for you, make any necessary adjustments, and it will tell you if the calibration was a success or a failure. So a failure may be if there was some sort of fault with the sensor perhaps. Great feature from this perspective, particularly from those within our channels and our customers who have service as part of their business model. It enables you to, or it automatically rather, generates a field calibration certificate for that detector. So it will use all the information of the gas and the calibration and the unit itself to populate a calibration certificate for the instrument. So that will be gas details. A unique feature here is that you can incorporate your own company name and logo within that calibration certificate, so that when you send that across to your customer, rather than it being a Bacharach branded document, it's fully branded with your company logo and your company details. The next screen I will show you is the test mode screen. So here you can utilize this screen to quickly test the outputs from the device, from the MGS-400 detector. So it enables you to manually step through each of those outputs and test them. So you can test the LEDs there. So you can have them either switched off, green, red, orange. You can test the internal buzzer function. You can test the relay activation. So you can switch the relays on and off, and that will activate any items that are connected to that. You can test the analog outputs, and you can test that across the full range. This is a great screen and a great feature for both the commissioning phase of the installation and also for fault finding following installation. So as part of the commissioning process, you can utilize this to fully test that all of the relay connections are working correctly, that the alarm outputs are working as you would anticipate them to. And then down the line in the future, if there was some sort of fault potentially with the instrument, you can utilize this to help in fault finding to identify what the actual issue and fault is with the instrument. On the device configuration screen, this is where you will utilize it. You can, on here, you can set your passcodes for the Bluetooth connectivity and configuration lock. You can reset the instrument to the factory defaults. You can define your alarm set points on here. So again, if you see the image on the right there, if you were just to click on alarm, just touch the alarm, low alarm set point, for example, it will bring up a small box and you just type in the alarm set point you want to have for that. On this screen as well, useful for configuring your alarm behavior. So you can set your alarms to be latching or non-latching. You can adjust your Modbus settings on here. And you can configure your relay behavior. So you can have your relay set to normally open, normally closed, or fail safe. And you can also manage your analog output settings here. So you can set that to be milliamps or volts. Again, really to provide that flexibility to meet the specific project and the requirements that you have per installation. In terms of supported gases, I mentioned earlier the investment in resource and capability that Bacharach has around supporting existing refrigerants in the market, but also offering detection solutions that can support new refrigerants as they come to the market. We support a number of different sensor technologies for measurements of the most commonly used ones today. So infrared typically for CO2 and hydrocarbons, semiconductor typically for those halogenated refrigerants, so your HFCs and HFO families, electrochemical sensors for particularly ammonia for this market, but we also do offer other versions for oxygen and CO, for example. And we offer catalytic-based sensor technologies for the higher ranges of hydrocarbons and ammonia. So when you're talking at the kind of lower flammability levels, that's the solution that we would utilize there. Key thing, particularly from a transition perspective for our existing channels and customers, is that the MGS-400 series measures all refrigerants that the existing 150 and 100 platforms offer. So that's a good point. And also we've rationalized some of the sensor offerings, not in terms of the actual refrigerants they detect, but in terms of some of the measurement ranges. So it's a much cleaner offering to ensure that it's again keeps it simple for our customers to identify the correct detector for their requirements. And as I mentioned before, we do invest in supporting the market with regard to new refrigerants as and when they come to the market, and as and when the market demands that we have a solution available. This is just a quick reference point. This slide to show the specific refrigerants and detectors that are available for the 400 series that we support. And this is a good overview slide of where the MGS-400 series fits in with regard to Bacharach's wider diffusion portfolio. So the MGS-400 series for us will be essentially our go-to product to support the compliance market around safety standards. We also offer the MGS-250, which is an infrared-based diffusion instrument, and that's really utilized where you have the potential for some gas interference, whether that's different gases on site that will react with a semiconductor, for example, or if there's some strong chemical-based cleaning materials or diesel emissions. The MGS-250 as an infrared sensor will not respond to those, so that might be a more suitable solution. The 550, which is a dual sensor option. So again, if you have customers who need a single transmitter-based detector with two different sensor variants, the 550 can support that. And then we have the MBR300, which is our product specifically designed for and targeting the VRF occupied space market. Another key comparison and an area to spend a moment on to explain is where does the MGS-400 series differ from the Multizone? So for those of you who are not maybe aware, the Multizone is Bacharach's multi-point aspirated detection system. The MGS-400 series forms part of our Diffusion Portfolio, which is essentially standalone point detectors. The key differential really is the markets and the applications that both of these products are targeted at. So the MGS-400 is very much targeted and designed to support compliance with refrigerant safety standards. So personnel protection, particularly CO2, for example, in a lot of the supermarket applications. The Multizone really is designed to support for customers who are looking to actively reduce their refrigerant losses. It's a true leak detection system, and it's designed really to support things such as F-gas, reductions in refrigerant losses, the CARB initiative in the US. And the key differential with that is the capability to measure down to just 1 part per million on the Multizone. So what that gives you is the capability to really identify at a very early stage relatively small leaks in an environment and tie that into a philosophy of refrigerant management and reduction on refrigerant losses. The MGS-400 series, as I say, is very much targeted and designed to support the compliance market for EN378, for ASHRAE 15, to provide personnel protection in the event of a relatively significant leak. Okay, so in terms of the available sales toolkit, the data sheets for all the product variants are available. They're actually available that you can click and download from this presentation today. The MGS-400 overview sales brochure. There is also a competitor comparison matrix and presentation that we can share on a local and regional level and basis with our channel partners. There is a presentation separate on application and configuration, and we'll go through a couple of those at the end of this presentation, just as examples. There will be, we have a product configurator in the works, which will help to support with customers to identify which specific product they need. We have demo kits, which will be made available to all of our channel partners. And we're keen to support that our channels have sufficient demo instruments to take to customers to show. The nice thing with the 400 series, it's very much a product that can be demonstrated using the app, etc., using the test functions within the app. It's a nice product to have on a desk and to show customers, to really articulate the value and the differentiation between the product and the rest of the market. We do have some presentations and some support material around the refrigeration safety standards, particularly EN378 and ASHRAE 15. We do plan in the near future to schedule some specific separate webinars for you guys on this topic, and we can go through each of those in detail, and we will, of course, once we have some dates for those, we will share them accordingly. In addition, we do have a full bid specification for the 400 series, which can be utilized in your efforts to have the product specified within a project. Okay, so that brings an end the section of the presentation on the product itself. As I said, we now have a number of different application and configuration examples. I won't go through each of these in the interest of time. However, each attendee today will receive a link to be able to access a copy of this recorded webinar session. And in addition, of course, you can go through the presentation in more detail in your own time as you see fit. So, just as an example, we have a small machinery room here. You have the MGS-450 detector with a power supply in that machinery room. The detector is providing an audible and visual alarm inside the room, so it's meeting the requirements, therefore, of the necessary standards. and then from that detector, it's driving power through the relay to an outside beacon and sounder, which is outside the entrance. So again, very simple, easy example of how the detector can be used to support compliance with the regulations. Next example is a large chiller room. So you have, in this example, we have an MGS-400 control panel just outside one of the entrances to the room with power into that control panel. So that provides your audible and visual notification outside that entrance of any alarm conditions. Inside the room here, we have 4 MGS-400 units. Again, they're providing detection and audible and visual alarms in the event of an alarm condition. You'll notice on the right-hand side here that we also have a second entrance into this particular room. And so from that control panel, we're also using power to drive a second audible and visual notification which sits outside that second entrance to the room. This example, you have 2 cold rooms together. So you have a 408 control panel which sits in between the entrance to each of those rooms. Again, the power supply is to the control panel, and then that control panel powers and interfaces via Modbus to the 2 detectors, one in each of those rooms. So again, you have audible visual notification inside the room, outside the room also with the control panel, and you have a very simple Modbus and power connection daisy chain there to make that an easy and simple installation. If you had additional entrances to those rooms, again, you can drive power and relay signals from the MGS-450s in each of those rooms to drive an additional beacon sounder which sits outside. Okay, and as you'll see, I won't go through the rest in as much detail, but you can see from these diagrams that we've put some thought into some potential scenarios that you may face with customers in the field, and examples of how you can apply the MGS-400 series to support those requirements. So here we have a large cold storage facility, for example, number of detectors in a cold room, and also detector into the machinery room at the top right there. And this particular one is nice because it highlights the daisy chain capability of the detectors connected into a control panel. Okay, so that brings an end to the formal session. Again, thank you all very much for joining today. I hope you got a lot of benefit from that, and it was a good overview of the product. I'll hand over to Matt now, who will be picking up on some of the questions that you may have raised during the course of the presentation.
All right, thank you, Karl. Again, we're very excited about the MGS-400 product line, and hope you are as well. Obviously, we've had quite a few questions come across during the webinar, and so I want to thank you for those. Karl, the first thing I want to mention is the app. So if you go to our website, mybacharach.com/apps, you will see links to the Google Play and iOS App Store there. It is a free download, and you can get those today. So the first question I had come across was that attendee had asked if we could go into more detail on why the -40 degrees Celsius temperature range is important for a safety device.
Absolutely, good question. Yeah, there's a couple of reasons really. One, which is it's more of a benefit of the product, I guess, rather than an advantage from a safety perspective, is, as I mentioned earlier, because the full range of the MGS-400 series is fully certified to -40. It means for our channel partners and our customers out there in the marketplace, it means they don't have to have different variations of different products in different areas of their facility or on different projects. So it means you have a standardized platform that you can utilize right across the board. From a safety perspective, the reason it's really important is there are a number of devices on the market out there that are not necessarily suitable to be used in low temperature applications. We see a number of products out there where the stated temperature range of the product is sometimes 0 degrees or -10 degrees, for it, just as an example. What that means is that you've got to ask the question: are they really suitable to be putting those detectors into, a blast freezer, for example, at -30 degrees? Because the key question there really relates to the performance of the detector. If you put a gas detector into a very low temperature environment and it's not certified for performance in that, what impact does that have on the performance of the detector? And we do know for sure that for certain products that are not perhaps certified to those low temperatures, it can have a very significant impact on the performance, both in terms of the response time, particularly the response time, also the recovery time. So the response time is once you hit the high level concentration and it triggers an alarm, it can take a long time for that unit to respond to that alarm. That's particularly prevalent for applications such as CO2, for example, where you do need, given the potential rate during a catastrophic leak of CO2 to leak into an environment, you want to have a very quick response time on a sensor. Second thing is the recovery time. How long does that sensor take to recover after that alarm condition? So again, we've seen instances where an instrument can take significant amounts of time to respond, which means that you, as an end user, as a customer, you can't go into that environment while the alarm condition is still there, even though the actual gas concentration has dropped below the alarm condition. The other one is accuracy. We do know for sure gas detectors by nature, if they are utilized in unsuitable temperature conditions, there is a significant impact with regards to the accuracy that you will see on the sensor readings. So that can lead to a number of things. It can lead to potential false alarms. It can also lead to if you're logging data around your gas losses or leaks, for example, it means you can potentially have some false data, and it can also mean that you can have potentially someone running around looking for a leak in a facility where there actually isn't a leak. It's just the sensor is jumping around due to that lack of compatibility from a temperature perspective. Hope that answered the question.
Thank you. I think it did, Carl. Also have a question about the MDL for halogenated refrigerants, and someone else had asked in a previous session whether the MGS-400 gas detectors would help an end user meet standards set forward by CARB in the state of California.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. So when we talk about addressing some of the standards and the we need to be cognitive of a couple of things. One is what we're talking about here with the MGS-400 series and also the MGS-150 and the majority of the rest of Bacharach's diffusion product ranges, and in addition, similar products that are on the market today from the wider market. What those products are designed to do is really support compliance with the relevant safety standards. So EN 378 here in Europe, ASHRAE 15 in the US, and those products are designed to essentially protect, identify, of course, if you have a significant leak, but the key design is really to protect personnel in the event of a significant leak into a cold room, for example. So because of that, those types of products are really designed specifically for that application. With regard to minimum detection levels, that means that your typical alarm levels are going to be more in the hundreds of ppm levels for halogenated refrigerants, in line with typically in line with occupational exposure limits, which can be upwards to 1,000 parts per million, for example. The nature of the product as well means that the semiconductor sensor technologies inherent within that is they will have a minimum detection level of somewhere around 100 parts per million, which in the grand scheme of things is not a huge concentration of refrigerants. But what that means is that these types of products, including the 400 series, are not really designed to target and support compliance with CARB in the US particularly. CARB in the US is similar to F-gas in Europe in that it's really designed as an environmental piece of regulation and standard. Therefore, the key objective there is to actively pick up very small leaks at an early stage and actively minimize the refrigerant loss in line with a refrigerant management approach. CARB in particular specifically calls out that any detectors used in a fixed installation must be capable of accurately detecting at 10 parts per million and alarm at 100 parts per million. So to comply with CARB, you would really need to be considering using a more higher end infrared based technology solution. So such as the Multizone, for example. So the Multizone system has a minimum detection level of just 1 part per million. So that would probably be the better solution from Bacharach to help support compliance with CARB.
Well, I think we have time for one last question. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we had a question about the plug-and-play sensors, and I think this talks to the ability to future-proof this system. If someone were to change the refrigerant sensor that they were using, would that automatically change the gas detector's profiles and the refrigerant it's looking for?
Absolutely, and again, as we know, particularly well in Europe or in across the world, actually, there are lots of ongoing changes. People looking to change out their refrigerants that they're using today for new refrigerants. And in answer to that question, absolutely, one of the real great benefits of the pre-calibrated sensor replacement design is that a customer can literally take out their existing sensor. So for example, they may have a sensor for 404A today. They can literally take that out and they can replace it with a sensor for 1234YF, or they can replace it with a CO2, an infrared CO2 sensor. It's entirely configurable in that respect. And when you install that new sensor module, the instrument itself, all the adjustments are made. So there's no need to change the actual housing, the instruments itself. There's no need to change any of the existing hardware within the instrument. So you don't need to change any PCBs or add any additional hardware in there. You just simply change the plug-and-play sensor, and it's up and running with the new refrigerant.
Great. Well, I think that's where we're going to have to end today's presentation. Karl, thank you for joining us today to discuss the MGS-400 Gas Detection Series.
Thank you. Thanks again to everyone for attending.
And if anyone has any additional questions after today's webinar, you can reach Karl via his contact information here on this slide. And as always, we thank you for helping us make the HVACR industry safer, cleaner, and more efficient. Thank you again for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day.